got something interesting I want to tell you today. I initially had an episode related to something that sounded a little bit xenophobic. My misunderstanding of something led to me saying, "Oh, this thing is weird, and I don't get it, so it's not good." I recently watched a video from a filmmaker that I follow, and it was about this musician in India that plays an instrument called Tarpa. It's traditional Indian horn, and it looks like it was played, and it's still being played today, but it looks like it's being played during celebrations to gather people. In a traditional, yes, a lot of the videos that I watched, people are dancing and they look happy generally. But the instrument was very different than what I had ever heard. And the look of the instrument is very unique. So in this video, the guy is not only the musician, but he also explains how to make one. So on the top of this instrument, they vary in size. He's got one that's over maybe 7 feet tall. It's taller than him. And then they kind of range to maybe 3 feet in length. The top of the instrument has a gourd, and then set into that are wooden pieces, 2 wooden pipes with finger holes. And then underneath that is a horn. And I did some research and saw that it can be an animal horn or made out of leaves or just different material. And so what I want to do today is kind of take you on this journey that I took. Again, I went in wanting to make this episode about how strange this thing was, and it really dawned on me how actually my original intent was to focus on how technology has kind of distanced us from the way that we used to exist, and it kind of made it seem, like I said, like I couldn't get away from the fact that I just sounded really ignorant. So I thought, okay, well, what a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about this instrument and maybe some other instruments. So I have 3 that I want to kind of show you or talk about today. The first one is a Tarpa, and there's really not that much that I could find out about it. I wasn't going super all out into these instruments, but they were really fascinating to me the more I looked into them. The Tarpa, also called a pavri, also called a pavri maybe, again, is this instrument used traditionally by Indian musicians for celebrations, and it sounds like this. Again, very unique sound. That honking kind of sound was not something that is pleasing to my ears, but after hearing it enough, I got comfortable with it and I was able to find some pleasure in it. Now, the first set of videos I watched it looked like professionals playing this, because I found a video of this guy who it looked like didn't know very well how to play it, because his version sounded like this. More. And you can hear him breathing, and the other ones, the people are just playing them really easily. There's no breaks, there's no pause in the actual music. So it became clear to me that while this wasn't the most pleasing sounding instrument to me, it was quite a feat to be able to play this thing. And so that was something cool that I learned. In addition to that, they have this really unique look to them. The gourd on top and the horn on the bottom are just really quite unique. Like I said, and people, the ones that I originally saw were very simple, not a whole lot going on. But the more I dug, you could see people had designed them to be more ornate. One guy had what looked like a bird, like a bird's beak kind of coming out of the top of the gourd part. And then, his horn, the horn part on the bottom was all multicolored, and it looked like this really interesting looking bird. And then to think that this is an instrument that is used for celebration, it just kind of added to that, to the celebratory nature of the instrument. I thought it was really, really cool. As I was learning more about this instrument, it got me thinking about other styles of traditional instruments. Now, growing up, I would go to a lot of Native American exhibits. As a family, my dad would take me and my sister to these different cultural experiences. And so I'm very familiar with a lot of Native American instruments, and they definitely hold a special place in my heart because their uniqueness at the time and their the things that were wrapped around them being played. I often wouldn't hear this music on their own. I think I would, again, if it was a cultural celebration, hear them in association with somebody telling a story or trying to pass on a piece of tradition to the audience. And one of the things that came up in my research, in my looking at this stuff, and I stumbled across two that I want to highlight now. One of them is the drone flute, which I'll talk about in a second, but the other one is one that I was familiar with. This one isn't a wind instrument in the sense that a person would play this, but is made out of clay or ceramics now probably to make the sounds of an animal or of a whistle. And these are also traditional instruments, I guess you can call them, that sound kind of like this. There's a couple different versions here, and I'll tell you the story after.
For where? But where water sound?
Hay agua ahí dentro.
Woodpeckers.
This is just the sound of the wind?
No, there's water in there. Y el agua pasa por acá por abajo.
Acá y hay ductos. Monkey sound.
I don't know if it was clear, but in this soundbite here, these are all pots, basically, that have two compartments. And you pour water into one side, and as the water passes into the other compartment, it passes air into a, it forces air out of, one compartment into another part, and that is sent out of a different shaped hole in the pot. And I first was introduced to these pots in a pottery class that I took in college. So as an art credit and maybe a way to entertain myself, took pottery. I was the instructor was a family friend, so I think maybe I felt a little bit closer connected to stick around for an entire year of pottery. Now, at the end of that class, could I throw you a good pot? Absolutely not. And I think it was because I knew the instructor so well and could see, like I would get into discussions with him and he would kind of show me things that he had mastered. And this guy was an absolute pro, and it was intimidating to even touch the wheel. So I think I always kind of looked for experimental things to do in this class because I knew it would never get to that level, especially in a year. But I wanted to see, okay, what other things were available to be made out of clay. And there was an option where you could, throw a pot, or you could build something out of, you just get the clay and you mash it all together into something. So that's what I opted to do, and I found out about these Peruvian wind instruments. I'm sure they're available in other places or created by other people as well, but the ones that I found, again, rediscovered, are from Peru. The ones that I gave examples of, and they're really cool because, again, you're creating sounds based on water passing from one compartment to another, and obviously, the sound bites that I played you are from a person that has absolutely mastered the construction of these things. When I did it, you build, something that kind of looks like a pot on one side, and then you attach it to another side that has another pot, and then you have a hole that is where the wind would pass by, the water being poured, and I could never get it to work. It's very precise what you have to do to make this thing work, and I could not get it to work. And you only get one shot. I mean, you're going to build this thing, and it's either going to work or it's not. So it was really awesome to see this person has a fox and many birds, and what other things did they? Oh, they have monkeys. So I really enjoyed rediscovering that. It's just made me reconnect to humanity in a way. And I think that's what I came in. That was my original goal with this episode, was to focus on how technology continues to remove us from our humanity and how funny it was. I think that was my initial thought, was like, oh, look how funny it is that we've moved so far away from this honking horn made out of fruit or a vegetable, and now we have electronic music, and we have these ways that we communicate and celebrate now. And what I was able to rediscover was how beautiful. Imagine if you were a person, you were devoid of today's technology, and this is the way that you told a story, or you entertained one another, right? You didn't just talk about the birds and the animals that surrounded you. You had these different musical instruments that could kind of paint a broader picture, right? You could have the bird chirping when you talked about, an eagle soaring, or maybe a fox hunting you or something. I guess foxes don't really hunt you, or the, coyote hunting you or something. It was just really a great reminder about how special we are as people, and I think I'd forgotten that. It's so easy to get buried in your own passions, or maybe even get discouraged by the things that we hear on a day-to-day basis, but it was really special to be reminded of this simpler time. I don't want to say that, but just a time that a time of the past when we told stories in this way, or celebrated nature in a way, using stone to create elements that could help us tell a story. So the last instrument that I want to tell you about, and I think you would be more familiar with this instrument of all of them, is called drone flute, played by Native Americans. I'm sure many people, from North America all the way down to South America, used a variation of this flute. One side you have the drone side, and then the other side you have the flute side. So it's the flute sizes, the width of it varies for the different key that an instrument is created in. So this instrument is really great. Here, let me give you a little sample of it. So I really, really like this instrument. There's something very peaceful about it, something very reminiscent of those cultural celebrations that I would go to as a child. And again, they're so closely linked to not just hearing them on their own, but hearing them in association with somebody speaking or passing along a tradition or just teaching. And I really was brought back to, similarly with the other two instruments, to a point of a celebration of humanity. Imagine if there was, nothing going on. There was, you're just lost out in nature, and this is the thing that you're using to entertain yourself. It just seems very special, and I wanted to share this experience that I had with you because it was just, again, another reminder of, where we've come from, how funny we are, how when we get bored, we can create some great stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this journey, and I hope you get to enjoy some of these tunes. Maybe go seek them out for yourselves. All right, bye.